Hello, hello, hello. Got a quick little Deep Rock Galactic patch today, just so you can remind us that the game still exists. Although it's a little bit cool. I'm probably not going to waste too much time. We're just going to get into it, sort of list off the patches. But there are some things in here that I think are kind of neat. Mainly the methodology by which they've chosen, basically the fixes, because it is just a list of fixes. Towards the end, I'll actually talk a little bit about the potential of other patches, just based on sort of recent things I've heard. Don't expect much, but yeah, let's just get into the patch itself. So this is season 5 patch number 7. This patch adds a few seasonal events, fixes a number of bugs, and we updated the DRG Universe tab to also include the merch store and the mug Kickstarter, which isn't mentioned. To be fair, the seasonal event stuff and the Kickstarter stuff isn't mentioned actually in the patch notes themselves, so that's separate. So sometimes they'll do this with patches where they'll just use them as an opportunity to add in all of the setup for upcoming holiday events. And this is why we've had situations in the past where we've had things leaked, like just generally just like hats, like the clown cosmetic from last Halloween. Was that this Halloween? No, it was last Halloween. Mainly that, and also the Ghost Ship Guardian framework, which was the anniversary DLC, the Supported 2 DLC, got leaked. And that's because they actually put these things in. So that means someone might be able to data mine something, which would be kind of neat. It's kind of fun when something like that happens, especially because it's reasonable at this point, I think, to expect something notable for each anniversary. You know, something kind of cool. Last time, obviously, we got the Mark 6 armor. We'll see. And then, obviously, they've updated the DRG Universe tab, which I believe is basically the tab that you see when you first open the game, as long as you don't have that part of the essentially the loading turned off. There's a screen where you have to like click somewhere to actually go into the game itself, and it's got like a tab with or a panel with the patch notes and sort of like promotional stuff too. Deep Rock promotional stuff like Survivor or Rogue Core, you know, not like random crap, but now it can actually include, I guess, the Kickstarter for the new merch, or you know, the merch store itself and the Kickstarter for the mug. So that's pretty cool. But the patches themselves, let's get going. Fixed Scout. Fixed Scout grappling hook occasionally fails to pull the Scout. That's important, and that is probably the only one here that I actually, when I think about it, I probably have experienced that without realizing. So, good, basically, good. And this link, I want to quickly show you what this is actually, because this is a website that is used to report. This is called Beta Hub, and it seems like it's used to report bugs. It's kind of weird that these are referenced though, because I would expect it to be, obviously you got Bjorn here who actually, you know, posted the patch notes. But you would expect them to be using Please Fix, which is kind of the bug reporting hub that they set up, or you know, put Deep Rock on that website. And that's how they can use it to sort of find priority things to fix. But I guess they're also using this Beta Hub, and it seems to have actually been the source of a number of the bugs that they've chosen to fix in this patch. So that's kind of cool, though. Still, sourcing it from like sort of community platforms that highlight bugs. It's a good way to go about things. They also fixed crawlers using too many particles when walking. They fixed that terrain could block the players from connecting nodes to the power station. Industrial sabotage. What? What does that mean? That sounds weird. What kind of terrain? Because obviously, in Industrial Sabotage, when it comes to connecting the nodes between the hacking pod and the power station, in general, terrain is meant to block the connection. And that's where the challenge comes in for building the connection. You're supposed to actually choose where you put them wisely. I would assume that they're not getting rid of that aspect of things, because if they are, that is a pretty insane bug. I have to assume that this is actually omitting the fact that this is probably referring to a specific type of terrain that isn't intended to block the connection, maybe platforms or something like that, not sure. It wouldn't be hard to find out, though, I suppose. It would be really weird if they have removed that feature. Anyway, it also fixed selecting the incorrect previously equipped item when pipeline building. Oh, okay. Actually, that is a very notable one that I've experienced quite a lot. And I think I've experienced it in more context than just on-site refining. But basically, when you are, well, let's just say you're just playing the mission, you have whatever you have in your hand, right? Let's say it's not your primary weapon. And then you go to start working on a pipe, All right, I think it's both repairing and connecting and building the pipes, all the stuff you do to interact with pipes. Once you stop interacting, it will most likely, from what I've experienced, it pretty much always reverts back to your primary weapon no matter what. Which is actually a little bit annoying, especially if you're on sort of a traversal sort of kick, I guess. Right? So you're working on the pipeline, so you want your traversal tool out, like if you're an engineer or a driller, especially. So it can be kind of frustrating actually, or you're just not going back to the tool that you expected to. This is something I've actually experienced, and like I said, I think I've experienced it in more contexts, although I can't remember them off the top of my head. But still, that's actually quite good. Quite good. They fixed Gunner Shield frequently fails to provide buffs to players, which is something, once again, I kind of feel like I might have experienced. Not sure. Fixed a bunch of typos. Fixed crash when approaching core stone retrieval pod with some object, which is kind of a weird thing to happen, but any crash being fixed is a good thing. So there you go. That is Season 5, patch number 7. A pretty good list of small, but I would say fairly impactful bugs have been quashed in this one, which is always a good thing. And it kind of just lets you know we're still in there. You know, Deep Rock's not going to get any like major updates until Season 6, and who knows what the future is beyond that, but don't bother thinking about it because Season 6 isn't happening until 2026 anyway. I'm so glad we're finally just about to get into 2025 so we can get that train going. Either way, I do want to talk a little bit about patches. This in isolation is very good, but I want to consider sort of things that are similar to, I think it was the previous patch or at least the one before. I think it was the one before. So it was actually there it is. The one where you actually got some weapon balancing, specifically for Neuronasso. And I know through the grapevine that Mike, the lead game designer, has looked a little bit into balancing the new Season 5 overclocks. This is not me making any kind of promise. He really just doesn't have the time. He is the lead game designer, but he's also the kind of guy who's relied on for weapon balancing, which is a little bit unfair on him, I think. But either way, I don't think anyone who's like still playing Deep Rock consistently would be upset if such changes were basically drip fed, because you know the strong argument, the very I think rational argument is that there's no point taking time away from roll call to work on a small update for Deep Rock, right? Something that's just going to fly under the radar of most people and not bring in any new players. But if it's something that can be drip fed, a very small amount of effort that is kind of really barely impacts the development of roll call, like 1 or 2 sort of weapon tweaks in a patch per month or even every 2 months, it's such a small amount of time taken, or at least I'm assuming it is. I don't want to jump the gun and armchair develop in any way, but I obviously technically am. But what I'm saying is that the people like me who are still playing Deep Rock consistently, we're quite easy to please. So we'll literally appreciate anything, and that's why I think as long as there's a way to add sort of these smaller weapon changes, and I know this probably isn't going to go beyond the Season 5 overclocks, but if there's a way to do that really doesn't impact road core, even if that has to be done in insanely small increments, it's still going to have it's still a best case scenario where it will still benefit us and sort of impart positivity upon us consistent players, as much as pretty much anything else would. So I would say it's definitely worth the time, but obviously once again that is a bit of a presumption on my part. And on that note as well, I think I want to do a video on this. I've been wanting to do a video on suggested weapon balance changes for a while. The problem with that is it would be a lot of work, and it's a lot of work for something where I know that 90% of those changes will never happen. At least 90%, I should say. Even though I think they would be fairly well founded, it's just not in the cards anymore for Deep Rock, you know. Unless later down the line we get like after Season 6, maybe we enter some kind of stage of still big but not necessarily seasonal updates. So there might be like a weapon balancing update that just takes a lot of feedback into consideration. That'd be something I'd love to see. But in general, what I'm saying is I'm probably going to do a video on balancing for those overclocks specifically, for the Season 5 overclocks. And you can expect to see that, I think, early next year, if it's going to happen at all. But I think that makes a lot more sense than trying to cover every single possible change that I could suggest. Because I've definitely got a bunch. In fact, I potentially have changes to suggest for like pretty much every new overclock. A lot of them, I'd say most of them are good, but I still have things that I could say about all of them, I think. And some a lot more than others, however. Either way, it's always good to get a patch. It just reminds us that something's still happening over at Glitch. Obviously it is. Obviously a lot of work is happening on Road Core, and that's awesome. I think Road Core's gonna be great. But Deep Rock's still here and it's not going anywhere, so it's always nice to be for that that line to be thrown. Either way, that's all. I've got to go and record an overclock showcase now. Wish me luck. Anyway, as always, if you enjoyed this or found it useful, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to see more videos like this and you want to stay on top of everything to do with Deep Rock and Road Core, then also click the bell. And I'll see you tomorrow, actually. Until then.